Hey, we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Dev.
Yeah, we
My
have
name is
25% now of diversity.
25%. No, we don't have Indians in our team.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Swimming. Welcome to DevKami. So as you can see, we have a new person in our channel. I do not know which direction to see. So we have Wendy. Wendy.
Yeah. Wendy is actually below you on my screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the direction is a mess, but Wendy, say hello, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Before I go on.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. I introduce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Hi, my name is Wendy. I'm a software engineer. I work at Pulsify, and I also help to organize Women Who Code meetups.
Hey.
Oh.
You want to tell us more about that?
More about the meetups.
Yeah. Sure. Whatever you did.
Oh, okay. What we do, we try to promote more diversity in the tech community, cause the percentage of women in tech is quite low. So we try to do more tech stuff to promote more women to join. And then recently we had one last Saturday. I think you talked about it in the last DevKami. We did the Ethereum workshop. And cool. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Very clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's clear.
Because it's just poor network connection here. Oh. Yeah, so next upcoming is the Civic Tech Talk with Sina Project.
Yay.
And we also have one with IoT coming up soon. So that instructor is from Penang. And he'll be working with Arduino kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so now we're done introduce ourselves. So we have Wendy, me, Swimming, Tristan, which have their head in the interesting direction. And of course, Motion Man.
Easy. Who is Motion Man? I heard you suck.
One guy. So Chi Leong is actually handling our video and do a lot of editing.
Yeah. So
before we start, let's find out the event that we're going to happen really soon. Yeah. Can somebody? So what's the event that's happening?
You know how to find out what the events are happening soon? You go to devkami.com/meetup.
Yay!
We have a page, which doesn't look very nice right now because nobody has time to fix it yet.
Yeah. Hopefully,
So according to our meetup page, Golang September is happening on September 25 at Surya Labs. The day after would be Civic Tech. What is it and how do you contribute?
Yeah, that's organized by Women Who Code as well.
Yeah.
Women Who Code.
Yeah.
Organized by Women Who Code, happening at the Mind Valley Hall of Awesomeness on the 26th of September. And a few days after that will be Rustlang at Surya Labs again.
Yep. So we have so to check out our site, we will have event coming all the way to end of the year. Yeah. But if you have more event, do a pull request, visit our website. Yeah. And you're a software developer. Give us pull request, we'll add it to the site. So
Yeah.
So
I found that it's a good filter because probably the people who just do all of those ICO meetup things don't know how to do pull request.
Don't jinx it.
If you can do a pull request, most likely you know.
Don't worry about it.
I haven't seen anything though.
So
I see your homework. Okay.
Yep. So as you can see, we already had an event page. You can find us at devkami.com. It's a work in progress, but
I was tackling this just now because my Windows laptop got like broken, and I mean it's Windows, right? And I found that it's a good thing. When I was setting up this laptop with Windows, I was using Chocolatey and Scoop, and I find that it's not the same as setting up an Ubuntu or a Linux laptop where I have a script, for example, on GitHub where it's a bash script where I just, for example, I freshly installed Ubuntu, and then I download that script, paste it, run it, and then it just sets up, installs everything that I need, sets up all of the software that I'm using, and that's it. It's all provisioned, and I'm ready to be productive within like 30 minutes. So I don't have to take the whole day to set up or install all of these software. I find it a bit more difficult on Windows, and it was before it took like 2 days to download, install all of these things. But when I discovered Scoop and Chocolatey, it's so much faster because I just Chocolatey install Chrome, for example, or Scoop install Git, and it's so much easier. Yeah.
But before you go on, so what is this? Okay, so two things here. What are those individual tools? What is Scoop? What is Chocolatey? For those that do not know.
I'm sharing at the live. I'm sharing these two on the live chat as well.
Yeah, and share the links to the chat if you can. Yeah. So,
do I share
what are those two?
No, I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
So explain to us what are the two tools you're talking about.
If you use Ubuntu, you will have apt or Debian has apt-get, and Fedora, Red Hat will have their RPM, or will have its Pacman, all these things, right? Package managers. They're very mature systems. These Linux systems would have like lots of repositories, and if you need to install a certain piece of software, you don't have to go to the website to download the software. You just use your package manager to search for it, and then you just download it. It's a very modern way of installing software. Before there was an app store, there was package management, and think of it as an app store where all of your apps are there, all of your software, and then you just use a program to download it. Now, and Mac has something similar. Sorry?
And it's free.
And
it's
what?
Free.
It's free. It's free. Well, most of it is free. Canonical has some of what's called paid software, for example, but it didn't really take on that much, so it didn't really catch on. Mac has something called Homebrew. You might have heard of it. Before, I forgot what was before Homebrew, but the de facto stand. Sorry.
MacPox.
I forgot. I don't know.
Pox.
Was it? No.
Yeah.
I forgot. There was something about there was something that we were using before Homebrew on Mac, but now the de facto is Homebrew. So you just brew install something, for example, brew install Git, and again you don't have to download it. But the Apple App Store for Mac is a lot more polished anyway. Now the Windows case is horrible because the Windows Store is really horrible. You have lots of really low quality programs there. And if you grew up on Windows, you would have known the difficult job of going to a website or searching for a driver or a piece of software, or looking through Google, like asking what's the best terminal emulator for Windows, for example, and then you start
clicking the wrong button,
reading through it, and then downloading, installing,
installers. Agree to install the
toolbar. Click. And and then the worst thing is that you have to reboot at the end, right? And then it's like 30 minutes of your time wasted clicking through dialog boxes, rebooting, installing, and it's just for one piece of software. And imagine if you have a fresh machine, you have a lot of workflows running through this, and then you have to do this for like 12 different pieces of software. That's one whole day that's wasted. And so Chocolatey and Scoop are like package managers for Windows, where you do, for example, Scoop install Git, and then it just downloads Git plus all of its dependencies. And so if you don't have to worry about, I download Audacity, for example, and I find it doesn't read MP3s because I have to download lame MP3, install that in order for Audacity to read MP3s, for example. So it's horrible like that.
Okay.
But with package managers, it downloads the whole thing plus the dependencies it has, and then it just works. And this is a way to modernize Windows package management for a developer workflow, at least.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
that's how I'm doing this automation right now.
Right. So Wendy, do you use anything to automate your installation or something?
No, right now, no. I'm not so good with
What do you use, Windows or Mac?
I used to use Windows. Actually, I've been using Windows for like the whole of my life until 2 months ago when I started my new job. I was given a Mac. So I
Okay.
had to.
All right.
So
Interesting.
now you're a Mac user.
Now I am a Mac user 24/7.
Okay. Bug this guy for if you need anything. So my little history is I use Linux for a long time. So things actually I kind of take this for granted. But that's the boring part actually, believe it or not. So that's actually boring because everyone that used Linux actually got shocked that you can actually download software for free.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
We're spoiled.
Show off, yeah.
Like I've been using Ubuntu for like
Yes.
as my main machine operating system for the past few years, and I feel
Yeah.
I'm spoiled going back to Windows.
Yes.
Like, why is everything so difficult? Why do I have to download a driver to make this thing work?
Yes.
It doesn't
So-
happen.
No, you just haven't. I think you guys are just fortunate with Linux because most of the stuff that you use actually work directly with Linux. But else, you basically need to compile your own drivers anyway.
Yes,
Like
and
some
that is
quick
actually
sheets and
true.
stuff, yeah.
That's actually true because before Ubuntu, around late 2000s, when I started using around 2004, Linux distribution have this professional version. So what happened is they actually provide some binary for some of the software. That actually those are actually their monetization plan. So they for some time have that kind of plan. So as a result, when you use Yum or whatever, you actually have to compile instead. So at one time they do that, then it just lost out when Ubuntu comes out. Then you just have all the package that you need. So because those days they actually don't have a good separation between like a commercial OS and a free OS. So those days you have Mandrake had this model, SUSE has this model. Red Hat at one time too,
History
but
of grandfather Linux distros.
Yes. But nowadays, Ubuntu is like everything is free, so as a result, people just don't do that. You want to use some Linux, Red Hat like OS, RHEL provide everything for you. Then you want to use Fedora, that too. So nowadays, you don't have that kind of problem anymore. And even on Windows environment is crazy. Have you tried PowerShell before?
No.
None of you guys. Okay,
So
so
I think I want to add in
No.
something about Fedora. By default the repo is actually free free as in free software kind of packages only. So in
Yeah.
order to install like proprietary stuff or non-licensed compliant kind of things, you actually use a third-party one like RPM Fusion. So
Yeah.
you still need to do something, but it's there for you.
Yeah. So kids nowadays, damn kids.
I'm not that old.
Okay.
I just graduated
Okay.
from kindergarten.
Set up publisher.
Huh?
You
Set
said
up what?
was that you're referring to a publisher? What you just mentioned just now.
Publisher what?
Oh, never mind, I didn't hear properly.
No, I'm talking about how we used to do things those days. Nowadays,
No,
we
only
have a
him,
lot more
only
software
him.
option.
Only swimming. Swimming is a
So-
special one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either way, nowadays even Windows have their own automation suite nowadays, believe it or not. So which is why I bring you guys. Have any of you actually tried PowerShell?
Yeah.
No.
So PowerShell is really
I think
interesting.
we're too young to have tried it.
Yeah.
No, PowerShell is relatively new
yeah.
actually.
I only had
I
one
don't
year
think I
of
was
computing
born
experience.
during that time.
But PowerShell is one of those things that is equivalent to Bash but a lot more powerful, but the syntax is very weird. It's not easily typed, but it's very powerful.
I'm not sure
And more
if I'm
importantly-
wrong, but PowerShell is supposed to expose the .NET
Yes.
objects for you to as a command.
Correct. And it's actually integrate very well with Chocolatey. So you can theoretically write a script that you can just run once and install stuff on it. So if on Windows, you can potentially actually do that. And Microsoft actually tried to do that for some time, but The uptake among the Windows admin are not there yet, but it's there. The facility is actually very powerful. Just so you know.
I think in my brief experience with Windows in production, I remember last time we used to use something called AutoIt.
Yeah.
Basically, it's something like you write a macro on the desktop, but it's not actually scripting, but it basically did quite a bit of automation for us.
Let's move on.
Yeah, it's not a free and open source stuff.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on ahead. So how about some programming, and what automation tools do any of you use for your projects? Not on personal desktop, for projects, say deployments, setting up your dev environment. So what you use?
I'm trying out this thing called Homesick. Well, not necessarily. This is not necessarily programming, but this is more about the Ubuntu dot files, so that I can sync it across all of my workstations.
Ooh.
I have one at work. I have one here at home, and I prefer the same environment. So whenever I change a setting, for example, I would want it to be reflected in both. So I'm trying out Homesick. I haven't fully set it up yet, but that automates me having to not to copy dot files across or all of these things.
Okay. How does it work?
Let me write up some show notes because I think all of these links are quite nice.
Yeah, we need to start doing that. Then add to our site. Otherwise, our site is too empty.
Talked about.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying out right now.
Cool. So how does that set up? I mean, you write your dot files, then you put. I assume you're going to be on GitHub or somewhere, correct?
Yeah, it will be on GitHub.
Then you have a script or something to actually download your files to your system?
No, Homesick does it automatically, so that's how it syncs across.
Okay. Cool. So Wendy, do you use any of the automation tools on your at your work? Do you introduce any things around it?
For deployment and yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Oh, that you're talking to me. Yeah. For deployment, I don't really use any tools. I think it's already set up by the other developers. But I used to have a batch script where I just doing stuff like changing. Very often you need to change environment sometimes and change the database configuration. So all of that you just with Windows you open services, switch and all that. So I realized all of that can just be put in a batch script and you run it and it does all of these things. Yeah.
So batch, yeah, batch script. I remember
Fancy, that. Just good old batch script.
Yeah. I think only few of us actually remember how to write it. Fun time. So how about do you use Docker or things like that?
No, I don't. I guess the product at my company uses Docker, but I haven't yet learned how it works yet.
Okay, cool. So Chilio.
Yeah.
Or you don't to talk. Come on, you had a lot of automation tools.
What? CI/CD? Jenkins? I use Jenkins.
Okay.
So
you use Jenkins on your own computer?
No. I mean,
just for work stuff.
Yeah, just for work. From on my side, I tried to do most things on Docker because I don't automate that much of a thing. Stuff I use are considered pretty straightforward. And the hardest thing that I had to configure in my operating system last time was Emacs. So nowadays I just switch over to VS Code and it's so easy to use. So I don't have that much. If I'm gonna repeat it elsewhere and stuff, it will be via Docker, Makefile, usual Makefile, Bash.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, but most of the stuff, even at work, I use Jenkins, but for my own stuff is Travis and stuff. So they'll build the stuff. Everything is Docker to me. The end result must be Docker.
Okay.
So
cool.
Travis, like my GitHub stuff, will be built by Travis.
Yep. Awesome.
And Docker Hub themselves actually had if you don't have any like fancy setup, you have to do like testing and stuff. Docker Hub itself there's actually a free service for them to hook on to watch your GitHub and build automatically for every changes. So
cool. Now I know.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to share it in the chat as well.
And yeah, we need to collect this in the show notes as usual. So should I talk about the crazy one or not? Or
you forgot about Tristan.
No, Tristan already talked about how about your deployment takes, Tristan?
Yeah.
You talk about your dot files. You use
dot files, but for work, what we do is we do Capistrano. So I write a lot of recipes on Capistrano. Sometimes it's like bordering on Ansible or Puppet territory. So like Capistrano to set up Nginx and set up all the routes and all of the private
networks and stuff
there.
Can you spell
Capistrano?
Yeah, let me type that as well on the show notes. Yeah, Capistrano, like recipes there to set up Nginx, to set up. So because there's a lot of things you can do there, I've set up, I've made a Capistrano recipe to automatically add the version number to the bottom of the deployed page, and creating a release tag on GitHub on who deployed that. And basically the GitHub username and the email of the person who pushed it to production. So it automatically gets that as well. So it's very flexible. There's a lot of automation there just so that I don't have to manually do the release notes on GitHub, right? So you do
not target Docker, don't you? You still target AWS.
Docker so much. No, we're old school. We do Linode servers.
Yeah,
and instead of AMIs, we actually just clone a Linode server. We set one up, and then we clone it, and then that's it. That's how you scale basically. Because for our company, it's not where you have sudden changes of traffic. So we kind of know when the traffic happens. So we are actually cheaper. We used to have an AWS consultant coming at us and asking us a lot, like, "Hey, can we meet with you? And this is amazing or whatever, like autoscaling or whatever, right?" And talking to us, and they say, "Okay, here's our setup. Give us a quotation." And although the servers themselves are slightly, maybe 20% cheaper than the corresponding Linode instances, the bandwidth was so expensive. And so, because on Linode, you actually have like something like 500 gigs per server. We actually have like about 100 terabytes right now of bandwidth that we're not even using fully because we have a number of servers, but we have also a lot of bandwidth coming in. And if you compare that to the AWS bandwidth charges, it's going to be so expensive. So yeah, so we're old school like that, Linode. That's why we're still doing Capistrano. We don't do the AMI stuff that we were talking about on the DevOps meetup a few days ago.
That explains so because Capistrano is very similar. Okay, the way they use it is very similar to Puppet and all that. No, for traditional setup, it's awesome.
It looks
not really,
much like Fabric in Python, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. It's so Capistrano is not really a what do you call this? How would you say? How would you call it? No, not orchestration.
It's a shell.
You know what Puppet says? Like, you know what? How Puppet says that you converge into a known setup or something. So it doesn't do infrastructure, but because it's very flexible, you can create a script, a Capistrano recipe that behaves like a script that provisions. It's not really a provisioning automation tool.
It's actually set up.
Puppet, Ansible, and the other one, those are provisioning tools. Capistrano is a deployment tool. Basically, what it does is it builds the program and then copies it over to the server. But then because it's a recipe, you can always make it do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's not made for that, but you can make it do that. I mean, you can always push the edge of the thing. But of course, at a certain point, that automation tool, because it was not really designed for provisioning, there will be some times when Ansible or Puppet will be much better. Like, for example, making sure that a server, when you provision it, will always be the same setup. Because Capistrano is like a set of commands, then you're not sure always like whether a particular recipe happens before another recipe, because each Capistrano setup is different. Then you're not always sure when the server is going to be set up exactly the same as a previous server that was set up with the same scripts. But in Ansible or Puppet, you can make that guarantee. So it's at a certain point, the differences will be much more profound, and that's when you have to choose between a provisioning tool or a deployment tool.
We had a question from the audience, from Azwan. Have you tried Mina?
Never heard of it.
Mina is like Capistrano, but it's a bash script. So basically, it generates the commands local and then pushes it to the server, and then it runs it on the server. Capistrano 2 used to run, so you have to have an open SSH connection to the Capistrano server, because the Capistrano running on your local is going to be sending the commands over the tunnel, right? And it's going to be very slow. But Capistrano 3 is actually taking some concepts of Mina, where it generates the bash. If you look through the Capistrano logs, you'll see that one of the first lines there is it creates a shell script on /tnt, which then it proceeds to run. And then I would prefer, I haven't seen Mina for the longest time, but I would prefer right now Capistrano, because it actually talks back to the local Capistrano server, and it informs me of what's happening much more thoroughly than what Mina does. Because from what I remember, Mina would just copy the shell script there, and then it just runs it, and then it just pipes the result.
From the README, it seems to be it's going to generate a bash script and then send it over to the remote server and run it. And Capistrano is like step-by-step kind of command, get the feedback and stuff.
Capistrano 2 used to do that. Capistrano 2 used to do that. Capistrano 3 took a few things from Mina, and now it actually still generates a shell script on the server side and runs it there. So it's much faster, because the problem there is because so in Capistrano, you can actually deploy to multiple servers, like 5, 10, those things. And if you're maintaining a connection through each of them, it's going to be a problem on your end, because your bandwidth will be, and so that alleviates the thing. But what I like about Capistrano is because there's a central server, right, which is your local machine where you're deploying from, you can stage the builds together. So for example, one of the last few steps in Capistrano would be to symlink the current folder to the just released folder, right? Because Nginx, for example, is reading through to the symlink folder. So when you switch to symlink and then restart the server, and then Nginx reads the new configuration, then you're up again with new code. So what Capistrano will do is it will wait for all of your 10 servers deployment to be ready basically for the switch, and then switch them all at the same time. So I'm not sure how Mina would do that, because the shell script is basically running on the deployment server, right? And you basically have no control when it will finish. Some servers will finish faster than the others because of disk speed or memory or whatever other process. Maybe you're doing a live deploy so that there's zero downtime. So you might have a particular request coming in a certain server, so it's slower. So if you want everything staged and then happening at the same time, I find that Capistrano does that much better. But again, I haven't really looked into Mina that much. They might have changed something. That was like a few years ago when I was looking through Mina.
Okay, cool. So for me, I never heard of it. So that's that.
Yeah.
You should try it. Capistrano is good.
These are all Ruby couplets, and they are developed. They were developed by in Ruby.
Yeah.
So these are the stuff
that lots of Ruby projects use Capistrano. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But it's not limited to just Ruby projects though. You can use Capistrano to deploy Go, for example. Like you can run the build. So if you cap deploy, so the syntax is cap production deploy, for example, right? When you cap production deploy, it can start running and building your Go files first. Then what it will do is will copy the binary over to the deployment server, all 10 of them, if you have 10 of them. And then what it can do is like your Nginx proxy server, for example, can then start spawning a new set of child processes that will point to the new binary that's running, and then gracefully siphon off all of the concurrent connections that are still there. And then when the last connection dies, when the last connection is gone, then you kill off that child, and then so that the grace will turn over. So that's one thing that Capistrano can help deploying Go programs, for example, like graceful deployment.
Okay, cool. So my little experience. Should I start with the weird one or the? Let's start with the weird one. I had a weird one. So one of my first job is a mainframe project. I've been telling that to that, and if somebody get 1 cent every time I say that, somebody will be richer. But here's the fun thing about all COBOL-based program. So all mainframe-based program is actually processing a file, then rewrite it to a file, setting the file, rewriting to file. A file can be what we call a DASD. It's a type of file format on a ZOS system, or maybe the AS series, and sometimes it can be an actual file on the file server. Okay, so but how do you chain it up? How do you chain up the process so that it will generate the right file, so that your mainframe system can write on it and do it all the time? And because the way COBOL is written, a program cannot be too long. It's just hard to read. It just gets very hard to read very fast. So if we have a series of small files, that would be our microservice before microservice is cool, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we have a thing called the job command language. So that is actually my first experience on industrial scale automation. So what happened is it would call a program, generate a file, call a program, write to a file, send it this, send to another program. So a job control language, or we call it JCL script, is essentially a series of these. So this is my first experience. Then I got lazy. Then I got my experience using Puppet, best environment. So on app, I actually used Puppet for some time, at least when I was still there. So they use it to deploy to a few hundred servers. And we actually still had to write scripts. We still had to write scripts because Puppet actually only do 2 things. They generate configuration file and then maintain the state of configuration file. Mm-hmm. And because the type of product we have, so you can't really actually do things like, I can't simply do things like Puppet. More like Docker. So which is actually really interesting. But because you can inherit it based on development and whatnot, so what we do ends up is we had one thing called a lab. We call it the what's the project name again? Okay, either way, we are simulating a whole CDN infrastructure into into something that you can put on the desktop. So it's like we had like 2 DNS servers plus 1 Java app server plus some server to run configuration script generation and a few Nginx for redundancy testing. So it's like 6 servers, 6 Linux servers to be put on it, and we actually had to write a Puppet script to generate those. And because the nature of the product, you actually had to write Puppet for it, otherwise it would be too slow to run. So that's actually my best experience of using automation. And that's actually the biggest automation that I know of. It's a pretty big scale. Then recently I discovered Docker. So yeah, it's different. Each of these model is very different. Puppet, when you have relatively traditional type of infrastructure, yes, you can.
I don't think they're actually mutually exclusive. Puppet is infrastructure.
Yes.
So,
but the model of Docker would be very different. 1 server, 1 app. So you will deploy it. Yes.
It's one container, which one server. I think just in case people confuse, is one machine, multiple containers. Each container is considered one server. So one container should. The best practice is actually one process per container.
And here's why container changed the way we have to maintain the app nowadays. So one of the biggest one is like this. The reason why we have Puppet is we actually worry about access control, configuration file, conflict between configuration file and all that, which is why there's actually a state management. Having a container means you do not have to worry about that in theory. You just set it up per container. So it actually makes deployment so damn easy. It's ridiculous.
I see Docker though as more of the Go philosophy, where when you build it, it's whatever binary you have, you just ship it over to the other side basically, and that's your production app, right?
Yeah. So
the Docker is that whatever you build here on your Docker image, you ship it over, and then that's your Docker image. It's exactly the same as you would test on your local, and there's no such thing as, but it works on my machine and it's not working on production.
It's actually an extreme form of, chroot. It's actually an extreme form of chroot deployment, change root deployment to isolate environment so that you can have environment that
I don't think I was born when that was.
I have no idea. I'm only 1 year old.
Okay, change root is actually ancient way. It's not that ancient. People still do. When you install Ubuntu, they still use change root to set up your base environment to copy your stuff over.
CH root. Change root is actually very useful if your Linux is like, let's say something is broken, and you put it with a live USB or CD, and you can just change.
The last time I used CH root was when I was doing BSD. I don't think it's as popular on Linux than as in
No, it's not.
BSD love their CH root.
No, CH root. Jail is on BSD only, but CH root is everywhere.
Okay.
Correct. So CH root is basically assuming that path is the root. So most of the use case for me when I need to use CH root is when I need to fix my Linux installation.
Yes.
So let's say something is broken, I cannot put into it. So what I need to do is to put up a live media, USB or CD, get into it, mount that path, and mount certain, like let's say the bin and stuff from the live CD, and mount that the whatever disk that I want to repair, whatever operating system I need to repair, and do whatever I need to there. So if let's say I want to do driver upgrades or rollback and stuff, I can do it via CH root on a live GSP.
So this is actually how live CD installation work. People actually, if you used to do, people used to install FTP servers, and FTP server is almost always installed on the CH root jail.
Yeah.
So almost always do that. I believe they do it for email server as well, but nobody actually set up email servers and FTP servers nowadays.
I wanted to ask Wendy, do you know about CH root, or have you ever encountered a situation when you had to use a CH root? She's still here.
I cannot hear you. You're muted, Wendy.
Yeah. Sorry. What you asking if I encountered a situation in which I what?
You needed a jail or a CH root.
Do you know what is a jail or CS root? Just in case we.
No,
we jump too fast.
Yeah, guys, I'm quite junior. I don't.
It's fine. We're all juniors.
Yeah.
We're all learning.
Yeah. No, I haven't encountered.
Good, because I realized that we are ancient. We got some new person inside.
I think it's just you, Simei. Don't include us in your.
Yeah, we're pretty young. Like, I'm totally just finished school and stuff.
Okay, so either way, Docker really changed how we handle automation. Now I have to redo my whole concept of automation now. So actually the final one is if you use Python, I suggest that you start looking at pip files, pip environment,
PM.
pip env.
PM.
Yeah, pip.
PM is good stuff.
It's very good for you to set up a development environment. It's a what we call it's a way to package your Python program. It's actually, in this case, Ruby are a little bit advanced. You have that for our Ruby environment.
RVM.
IBM.
Yeah, RVM. You have that.
So I prefer RVM, no matter what
Okay, so
I do RVM.
The Python community finally catch up with RVM and NPM. With pip env.
So the Node version I discovered was called NVM.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, NVM.
So
they're copying RVM.
So pipenv finally catch up with the same thing.
No, you have PyEnv actually, but pipenv is actually like virtual, like PyEnv plus virtual env.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's both of them.
So it's something plus all the extra things, all the same idea from NPM. So either way, and it's more importantly, pipenv is officially supported by the Python community. So we use Python. I suggest that you start using it. So that's another thing that I discovered using about automating your project.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else that I forget about automation? Anything cool? Any coolest thing around it that you have discovered?
The question is, will automation steal our jobs?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Yeah, the way I see automation, if I want to say like AI and stuff, people like imagining a dystopic kind of a future where people are begging our machine overload for jobs and stuff, scraping by and stuff. But the way I see it, if you guys remember one of the animation Wall-E, Wall-E where machine were designed to serve us and we're all fat and we don't even know how to walk. Yeah, I mean there's actually two polarized view of how when machine actually took over our job. I mean, I see it as a really good improvement to our quality of life if it's not controlled by a small bunch of people. Yeah.
But just in case that happen, I'm still looking for a land in the mountain somewhere. Anybody want to sell land? I would love to buy it so that I can hide from technology. So yeah. So with that said, I think we pretty much covered everything already. We try to compile all this in a show notes. Yes.
We have a website. If you want the show notes, devkami.com.
Yeah. Yes.
Meetups. There's a meetup section.
You can find the links
designed
inside.
by Wendy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that's about it.
I think our about us is actually a placeholder. It doesn't look good if you've ever clicked on it.
Yes.
I don't know if you like it. So hopefully Google doesn't cache it yet.
We actually
it's going to be horrible.
I actually somebody joked on my Facebook timeline when I shared this video. Because last episode Jimmy actually left us, so we had 3, and it was episode 3, and this is episode 4, and we're 4 persons. So the joke was whether we'll have 100 for the episode 100.
Possible.
Yeah. I like it.
Well, we just start a conference out of that.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
DevKami conference.
Yeah.
All right. So I think anything else? Calling one, calling twice. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to find us, you can find us at devkami.com. Go to our Facebook group. Subscribe to our video.
Yeah.
Click the bell. Don't forget to click the bell. We occasionally have some interview coming. We already did one for Python.
Actually, we're supposed to interview Wendy today. Yeah, but
yeah, but we are getting a little late.
Yeah,
so.
we're gonna interview again.
Next
week. You have to be back next time.
Wendy will be one of our regulars. Yay!
Yes.
Fill up the numbers.
In fact, tell us what you learned next time. So
we have 5 person next time.
Yes.
I learned a lot about automation today.
Actually, one thing I hope is we have more new faces to tell us about their misadventure.
Yeah, you talk too much swimming.
Yes.
That's my complaint.
So, yeah. So with that said, I think we're going to closing up today.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can say goodbye now.
Yeah, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.